Hello guys, welcome to The One Who Saved Harry, one of my absolute favorite Wattpad books on here. This one is actually not complete, but the last time it was uploaded was quite a while ago. So it probably won't ever continue. So Jesus, that was an aggressive tap on my phone. You know, I'm actually very happy of how far this channel has gotten. And again, if you didn't see the little update thing I did to just kind of tell people what's going on, I'm not reading Heat Waves, and I am very, very sorry, dude. I'm very sorry. Super, super sorry about that. Because, I don't know, it was just a little bit uncomfortable to read, and I felt I didn't really want to read it, but again, in the update, it is linked there. Yeah. So, this is one of my favorite books. I am a little sick, so if you do hear some sniffling, that's why. It's really just allergies. But I hope you guys like this book as much as I do, because it really was one of the first few things I read on Wattpad when I first got it, which wasn't that long ago, but was still long enough to be nostalgic. So, Chapter 1. Chapter 1. Albus, Severus roared, barging into Dumbledore's office. "We need to talk." "By all means, talk, Severus," Dumbledore said quietly. "You cannot leave him there," Severus said, and Dumbledore immediately knew who he was talking about. "I was there this morning. They abuse him terribly, Albus. He's only 3. You must let me save him." "Severus, you know why?" Dumbledore began, but Severus cut him off. "I think I am perfectly able to protect him without this silly magic protection," he exclaimed. "If you leave him there, then he will end up dead before he even comes to Hogwarts." Dumbledore thought this over. "You may be right, Severus." He thought for some more. "Very well, you may go retrieve him. Bring him back here. However, so I may see if he needs any medical attention. If what I think you say about his relatives is true, then it's likely he will." "Thank you, Albus," Severus said, and left the office. Almost 2 hours later, Severus returned with the toddler asleep in his arms and took him up to Dumbledore's office. "Just get Madame Pomfrey to give him something for those bruises," Dumbledore firmly said after studying Harry. "He is otherwise unharmed." "Yes, Albus," Severus said, picking Harry back up. "And, Albus, see if Minerva will help me for the first few weeks. I know nothing about children." Severus arrived at dinner that night with Harry walking along behind him. The other teachers stopped when they saw the small boy, and Severus realized that neither him or Dumbledore had thought to inform the other teachers of the fact that Severus was rescuing Harry. "Severus," Minerva said, eyeing Harry, "where did you get a kid?" "Number 4 Privet Drive," Severus said. "You kidnapped Harry Potter without permission?" Minerva asked slowly, as though trying to understand what he was saying. "No," Severus said defendantly. "Dumbledore said I could." At this moment, Harry lost his balance and grabbed onto Severus's robes to steady himself, giving Minerva a look that dared her to say anything. Severus took Harry's hand and led him to a seat which had been magically modified so that it was like a Muggle high chair. Aurora Sinstra smiled softly at the small boy in the seat next to her. Severus sat on his other side. Harry looked at him and smiled. "Daddy!" he said, raising his arms as if to be picked up. Minerva raised her eyebrows at Severus. Oh, Professor Sprout and Sinstra said. Severus just rolled his eyes and helped the child eat, trying to ignore the looks he kept getting from Minerva. Chapter 2. Daddy? 5-year-old Harry asked. Yes, Harry? Severus asked, trying to focus on planning his lesson that started in 10 minutes. Can I watch potions? Harry asked, sounding extremely hopeful. Severus looked down at him. Can you not interrupt and do exactly as I tell you and not touch anything? Yeah, Daddy, Harry squealed. Then fine. Severus sighed. Come help me set up the classroom. Harry followed Severus through the door to his office and into the classroom. Can you put this box on that desk? Severus asked, handing Harry a box and pointing it at the desk at the very back of the room. As Harry wandered back towards the front of the room, there came an unmistakable sound of students on the other side of the door. Since Severus was busy, Harry walked over and pulled the door open. Silence fell immediately, but then there were whisperings, talkings, and explanations as the third-year students were pointing at Harry, who walked out of the classroom and into their midst. Oh, said one girl. Harry, you've grown so much. Most of the students, except for the new first years, were completely used to Harry and enjoyed playing with him in their free time. Daddy said I could watch. Harry squealed over the moon with enjoyment. Did he? What a boy asked. Well, that's unlucky. The door opened, which had been closed behind Harry, opened again, and Severus stepped out. In, he said, pointing through the door. The 13-year-olds hurried into the classroom with Harry following them. After the class situated, Harry settled himself next to a red-haired boy who was named Bill. You're doing that wrong, Harry said 15 minutes later as Bill was about to drop porcupine quills into his potion. No, I'm not, Bill said and released the quills. Harry ducked under the table, and 10 seconds after after 10 seconds the potion exploded. Told you, Harry said, re-emerging from under the table to find Bill sitting shell-shocked and blackened, staring at Severus, who was walking over. What's going on? He asked. Bill looked up at him. I've just discovered that Fred and George haven't been pranking me all summer, he muttered. Severus raised his eyebrows. Well, clean this mess up, William. Harry, come with me. Harry walked off, following Severus, and gave Bill a superior smile. Bill gave Harry a very dirty look. Chapter 3. Harry, Severus called down the hallway. Harry walked out of his room in Severus' chambers in Hogwarts. Yeah, Daddy? He asked. Happy birthday, Severus said, holding out a parcel. Harry made a strange noise of excitement and took it. Can I open it now? Harry asked. Of course you can, Severus said. Harry beamed as he ripped off the paper. Thanks, Daddy, he squealed, holding up a miniature model of a broomstick that was the perfect size for Harry to ride. You're welcome, Severus said, smiling at the 6-year-old. In the 3 years that Harry had been at Hogwarts, he had become an essential part of life to the staff. And the second year and above students, first years didn't know him that well yet. Harry even had nicknames for his staff. That is, the staff he'd met. Dumbledore, Grandpa D, McGonagall, Grandpa M, Hagrid, Uncle Hagrid, Professor Sinstra, Auntie Aurora, Professor Flitwick, Uncle Phileas or Shorty, Professor Quirrell, Muggle Studies professor until 1990, Uncle Q, Professor Binns. Harry hasn't seen him very often. Professor Binns. Harry hasn't seen that often. Filch. When talking to Severus, the Grump. When talking to him or the other teachers, Mr. Filch. Filch doesn't allow Harry to have nicknames for him. Madam Hooch, Aunt Hooch. Professor Kettleburn, either Uncle Kettle or burning tea. Madam Prince, Aunt P. Trelawney. Harry's never seen her before. She doesn't come down from her tower, ever. Professor Sprout, Auntie Flower or Auntie Sprout, Professor Vector, Aunt Victor. Sorry for that pause. Later that evening. Happy birthday, Harry, Minerva said. Yes, happy birthday, Harry. Dumbledore second. Thanks, Grandma M and Grandpa D, Harry said. Now let's see, how old are you now, Harry? Hagrid asked. 4? 5? I'm 6 years old, Uncle Hagrid, Harry said, grinning. Let's get this feast on with, why don't we? Hagrid said, laughing. Everyone took their seats at the staff table, and food magically appeared like it did every feast. Gifts to Harry were stacked on an empty end of the table. By the time everyone finished with dessert, it was an achievement that they weren't all sick. Harry, however, was just as full of energy as ever. Well now, Harry, why don't you open up your gifts? Hagrid said. Harry happily obliged. Thanks, Uncle Hagrid, Harry squealed, opening a box that was rattling ominously. Severus walked over and peered into the box. No, Hagrid, he's only 6. He can have this when he's 11, Severus said firmly, picking up the gift gingerly. Turned out to be a small model of a dragon that actually breathes fire. Hagrid and Harry both looked crestfallen. Finally, after opening several gifts, there was only one left. It was from Dumbledore. Ooh, it's squishy, Harry said, squeezing the package. He finally ripped it open, and a smooth, silvery piece of cloth fell into his lap. Your father had lent me that before he died, Dumbledore said, his eyes twinkling. Thought you liked it. Harry lifted it up, and it revealed to be a cloak. He shrugged and put it on to look down what it looked like. Harry screamed. His body and the cloak appeared to have disappeared, and obviously this startled the 6-year-old. What happened? He asked. Everyone was laughing. That's an invisibility cloak, Harry, Dumbledore said. Enjoy all the trouble you can get into with that. Severus glared at Dumbledore. Well, this has been very fun, but it's time for Harry to go to bed, Severus said, helping Harry gather up the gifts. The pair walked down to the dungeon, Harry chattering on and on about how wonderful of a day it had been. Finally, Harry was tucked into a bed and fell asleep with a smile on his face. Chapter 4. 11-year-old Harry was bored. He had explored every inch of Hogwarts castle, sat in on every lesson, became family with every teacher except for Trelawney, who he had only seen twice, and even been grounded several times, being found by Hagrid wandering in the Forbidden Forest. Of course, he knew a simple explanation of why he couldn't find anything to do. There was nothing left in the castle to do. And that was a problem, because he was supposed to be getting his letter at dinner that night from Grandpa D, which meant he would spend the next 7 years of his life, at least, in this castle. But maybe... Dad! Harry shouted. Yes, Harry? Will you take me to Spinner's End? Why would you want to go there? Severus inquired, brows furrowed. Because I want to see where you and Lily met and grew up, Harry explained, and I'm ridiculously bored. Does anyone live in the house you grew up in? No, Severus said. It is technically still mine. Why don't we live there then? Harry asked. It was a place of many terrible memories for me, Severus said. Can we at least go inside? Harry asked. I haven't even agreed to take you to Spinner's End yet, Severus pointed out. Please, Harry begged. Severus sighed. Fine, bring a cloak. It'll likely be cold. Harry grinned at him, then hurried down the hall to his room. A small model dragon, which Severus had returned to him on his 11th birthday, stood up from a small bed Harry had created on his nightstand. Dad, Harry called, can we bring Hendrix? Do not let him escape, Severus warned. Harry put Hendrix in his cloak pocket and hurried back into the kitchen. I'm ready to go, Harry said. Hold tight, Severus said, extending his arm. Harry grabbed on and felt Severus twist before he found himself in terrible, uncomfortable, compressing darkness. He couldn't breathe. He couldn't see. He couldn't do anything. And then it was over. And he was standing in a dark street. The houses were all the same shade of boring, ugly gray. There was almost no plants, and everything was dirty. This is nice, Harry said in a flat voice. It was very much dark, bleak, and boring, Severus said. Where'd you meet Lily? Harry asked. Severus began walking, and they came to a small playground in a much brighter, cleaner, and happier part of town. She and Petunia were playing there. Severus pointed to the swings. Swinging, and I was over there. He pointed to a bush, watching them. Lily jumped off the swings, but she stayed in the air far too long and landed far too lightly. Like a trapeze artist, the first display of accidental magic I saw, and she picked one of those flowers up off the ground. He gestured to a bush covered in beautiful white flowers, and made its petals moved. It scared Petunia, but it also made her jealous. Then I came out, and I told her she was a witch. She thought I meant muggle kind of witch. Evil, ugly, with the brooms and black cats. And then I called Petunia muggle. Not in a very nice tone, I'm afraid. Then she and Lily left. But you and Harry became friends? Harry said. She came to believe you about magic. Severus walked into a small area, with the ground clear, but branches overhead shooting them from the sky. Lily and I spent a lot of time here, he said. I told her all about magic. She asked about Dementors and thought that her accidental magic would get her sent to Azkaban. I told her about Hogwarts and magic. I told her it made no difference being Muggle-born, even though, sadly, it does. Petunia was spying on us from behind that tree. He pointed to the largest, but slipped and revealed herself. She made fun of me, and I made a branch fall from a tree. It hit her on the shoulder, so she cried and ran away. Lily knew I did it, even though I told her I didn't, so she left again. Where did she live? Harry asked. They walked away. They walked a ways, almost 20 minutes before they came to a cheerful yellow little house. She lived here, Severus said. After her parents finally got to know me and that I wasn't like my parents, I spent a lot of time here. We would play together and talk. We found a little letter from Hogwarts Hogwarts in Petunia's room. She had written to Dumbledore and begged him to let her come to Hogwarts. He had to say no. Muggles can't enter Hogwarts, but he was very kind about it. When Petunia found out that what she was and started calling Lily a freak. She didn't speak to her ever again after that. It made Lily very sad. Can I see the inside of your house? Harry asked. Must we? Severus asked. Yes, Harry said. Sighing, Severus led Harry back to Spinner's End and with them both back into the house. Where'd you sleep? Harry asked. Severus led Harry up the stairs to a small bedroom. It was decorated with slivering colors and banners, with black walls and a small bed. There was only one small window. It was not a happy childhood, Sarah said, and Harry looked around. With a little cleaning and maybe enlarging the window, this could be a pretty nice room. Well, neither of those things happened often, if ever, Sarah said. Why don't you live here anymore? Harry asked. Why do you live only in Hogwarts? Because this place was not happy for me, Severus said. Never wanted to return to the source of happiness. We could make it a nice place, Harry said, and spend some time here. I would like that, Severus smiled slightly. The pair spent the next hours cleaning the house, enlarging the windows, and making it a happier and brighter place to be in. This is much better, Harry said, looking around. Yes, it indeed is, Severus said. Now we must return to Hogwarts for dinner. I get my letter tonight, correct? Harry clarified. Yes, you do, Severus said. Do I have to call you guys like Professor or Sir? Harry asked. You certainly don't with me, Severus asked. Ask the others which they would prefer over dinner. Okay, Harry said. Hold on. Severus extended his arm again, and they were once more subjected into near suffocation. Here's your letter, Harry, Dumbledore said, and passed the letter down the table to him. So, I've been wondering, Harry said, do I have to call you guys Professor or Sir or Ma'am or whatever? That is up to you, Harry, Dumbledore said. If any of the teachers wish for you to call them Professor, then you must. But if they have no preference, then it's up to you. Do any of you have a specific preference? Harry asked, looking around at the teachers. No, they all said in unison. Then it will probably vary depending on the present company, Harry said, and Dumbledore chuckled softly. Chapter 5. Why do I have to take the train? Harry asked. I'll just be going home. Harry, this is where most of the students meet their best friends, Severus replied. I want you to have that opportunity. But what if I don't make any friends anyway? Harry asked. What if people only want to talk to me because I'm the stupid, famous Harry Potter, or the boy who lived, or whatever? Harry, Severus said, there will be some like that, but there will be many that are not. Train is about to leave, you need to get on. Harry sighed, nodding, and boarded the train. I'll see you at Hogwarts then, he said. Severus nodded, and the train soon sped away. Harry walked up the train, looking in each compartment. They all seemed to be full. He finally reached the last compartment, which only had one blonde boy in it. Harry entered. Hello, he said. Everywhere's full. Do you mind if I... The boy looked up and shook his head. Thanks, Harry said. Oh, my name's Harry. My name's Draco, the boy said. Are you Harry Potter or a different Harry? Oh, I'm Harry Potter, Harry said. Draco nodded. That must be annoying sometimes. It's annoying, like, all the time, Harry said. Draco laughed right as a red-haired boy entered the compartment. Hi, he said. Do you mind? Everywhere else is full. Harry looked at Draco, who shrugged. Not at all. Thanks. The boy sat down. I'm Ron, by the way. Ron Weasley. I'm Harry Potter, Harry said. And this is Draco Malfoy. Fred and George have been talked about you a lot, Ron said. You live with a potions teacher, don't you? Yeah, I do, Harry said. He took me from my aunt and uncle's house when I was 3. I'm not sure why, though. He won't tell me. Oh, Ron turned to Draco. You're Draco Malfoy. Yeah, Draco said. Are you Ron Weasley? Isn't your father in Azkaban? Ron asked bluntly. Well, yeah, Draco said. Draco said, Professor Snape, when he turned spy for our side, got Harry, revealed that my dad was a Death Eater. I didn't know that. I may have grown up without a father, but if he was a Death Eater, I don't care if he was my father. He deserves Azkaban. He deserves Azkaban. My mom always says the same thing. Oh, Ron said. So you don't have a problem with the fact that I'm a blood traitor? No, Draco shook his head. My mom said that people are equal, no matter what their blood status is. That's good, Harry said, because I think you'd have a problem with. Because I think you had a problem with Ron, you'd have a problem with me being Harry Potter, you know. But I'm glad you don't. Draco smiled fleetingly. Anything off the trolley, dears? Trolley, which was in the doorway of their compartment. Harry stood up. I'll have some chocolate frogs. He took a few coins out of his pocket. No thanks, I'm all set, Ron said, holding up a sandwich that did not look very appetizing. Yeah, I'm good, Draco said. On second thought, I'll take the lot, Harry said, handing her a handful of gold. Harry re-entered the compartment and sat and dumped the food onto a seat. Help yourselves, he said. Before long, the sandwiches lay forgotten on one of the seats, while the boys exchanged chocolate frog cards and dared each other to eat Bertie Bott's every flavored beans. Chapter 6. Excuse me, a bossy sort of a voice asked from a doorway. Has anyone seen a toad? A boy named Neville's lost one. No, sorry, we haven't, Draco said. The girl sniffed. Well, if you see one, we're in compartment 13. She left. Who was that? Ron asked. That's Hermione Granger, Draco said. She keeps going up and down the trains telling people off for being too childish. She sounds annoying, Ron commented. She kind of is, Draco nodded. But she won't leave you alone just because you ask her to. Wonderful, Ron groaned. Well, don't look now, Harry said, pointing out the window. Hogwarts is approaching. We'd better change. The boys changed into their school robes, stowing their Muggle clothes away. So, Harry, Draco said, if you ever got the choice, which house are you going for? Harry thought for a moment. Gryffindor. Huh, Draco nodded. I had thought that you'd wanted to be in Slytherin, since your father being head of Slytherin. You think I want every school punishment in his hands? Harry scoffed. Yeah, right. I'd rather go with Grandma N. Who? Draco asked. Oh, McGonagall. Harry turned slightly red. It's just, I've spent my whole life with them, so they're basically family, and no need to be embarrassed, Draco said. Just tell us who you mean the first time, and we'll try our best to remember. Okay, Harry grinned. I could just tell you now. No, that would take forever, Ron quickly said. Just tell us when you use one for the first time. Okay, Harry grinned. Got it. The Hogwarts Express pulled into Hogsmeade Station. All the students started disembarking. First year is over here, a loud, familiar voice yelled. First year this way. Uncle Hagrid! Harry exclaimed, hurrying over. Hello, Harry. Hagrid smiled down at him. And who are these? Oh, well, this is Ron and Draco. Harry introduced his new friends. Wonderful to meet you. Ron Weasley and Draco Malfoy. Hagrid beamed at them. and I'll teach you. Ron, don't go following your brother's footsteps. Must have spent half my life chasing them from that forest over there. Ron flushed a bit. Hagrid looked up to see a group of nervous 11-year-olds gathered in front of him. This all you? He asked. Right then, follow me. First years followed Hagrid to a fleet of boats. No more than four in a boat. Hagrid shouted at the first years. Harry, Ron, and Draco were followed into their boat by Hermione Granger. Everybody in? Hagrid asked. Right, forward. Boats set off across the lake, and Hagrid led them into the castle. And McGonagall gave a speech before leading them to Gravehall, and before Harry knew it, his name was called. Okay, I just want to say real quickly, Chapter 7 is like one paragraph. No judge to the author, just saying so you guys don't get confused. Chapter 7. Severus watched as Harry walked up on trembling up to the Sorting Hat, and McGonagall clearly seeing it as a million times, it didn't make you any less nervous for your turn. And although Severus would be fine with whatever house Harry was in, he couldn't help but hope he was in Slytherin. Chapter 8. Harry walked up to the Sorting Hat, his legs trembling. Minerva smiled encouragingly at him, before putting the hat on his head. The voice stated in his ear. I can already see Slytherin or Gryffindor. Which is the way to go? Was all Harry had to contribute. Not so difficult, you know, the hat murmured. And you do well, both. It better be Gryffindor. Harry felt both great happiness and some bitter disappointment as he got off his stool and moved to sit next to Fred George. Draco and Ron were both placed in Gryffindor, as was Hermione Granger. Finally, the sorting was over. I have just a few words for you, Dumbledore said, standing up and beaming at them. And here they are. Nitwit, Blubber, Oddment, Tweak. Thank you. He sat back down, and the tables filled themselves with full. Is he a bit mad? Ron asked Harry. Mad? Harry asked. He's a genius, but yeah, he can be a bit mad. And you call him? Draco asked. He's Grandpa D. Harry explained. Potatoes? Ron? Draco? Yeah, please, Ron said, and at the same time, Draco said, no, thank you. Harry laughed and passed some potatoes to Ron. So what exactly is it like living here? Ron asked, his mouth full. It's amazing, Harry said. When I was 6, Grandpa D gave me James' invisibility cloak, and when I was 9, I found a map. Called it the Marauder's map. I found it in Filch's office. Why were you in Mr. Filch's office? Draco asked. Who is Mr. Filch? Ron added. Mr. Filch is the caretaker, and he's really mean. Harry beamed. I was in his office because I blew up a toilet, and even though I wasn't a student, he still tried to give me detention and expel me. But friend George let off a load of dung bombs right then. So while he was upstairs yelling at them, I went through one of the drawers and found it. It was already open. I eventually figured out how to open and close it with certain sayings. What sayings? Ron asked. Secret sayings, Harry said mysteriously. Tell you that after dinner. Does Professor Snape know about it? Draco asked, grinning as if he already knew the answer. No. Harry grinned back at him, but he does often wonder how I seem to know more about the castle than he does. What kind of things? Ron asked. Harry looked around and then leaned closer to Ron and Draco. Friend George Corse leaned then listened to them. Ever heard of the room of requirement? Harry whispered. All present company shook their head. It's up on the 7th floor, Harry explained. Across from tapestry of a barn bass and Barnaby teaching trolls ballad, you have to walk across of it and cross in front of a blank wall, thinking of what you need it to become. A door will appear inside, and inside it will be whatever you need. Wicked, all the boys exclaimed in unison. Exactly. Harry leaned back, looking pleased. He glanced up at Severus, who was talking to Quirrell. As he watched, he felt his scar suddenly burn excruciatingly. Something he had never had happen to him before. Ah! He gasped, pressing a hand up to it. What's wrong? Ron and Draco asked. Nothing, Harry said, studying Severus in the back of Quirrell's head. Nothing, I'm fine. Boys filled the rest of the dinner with idle conversation before Dumbledore stood up again. Now that we are all fed and watered, I have a few things I need to tell you, he said, smiling at them. To our new students, the Dark Forest are off grounds. It's strictly forbidden to all students, and a few of our other students should know this by now, too. His eyes seemed to flicker in the direction of Harry and the Weasley twins. Mr. Filch has asked me to remind you that dwelling in the corridors is strictly forbidden, as are dung bombs, stink pellets, and among others. The full list can be viewed down on his office door. Students are not permitted to leave their dormitories after curfew. He thought for a moment. I think that's all of the importance. Off you trot. Harry stood. Hey, you guys... I'm gonna go talk to Dad. Want to come with me? Draco and Ron looked at each other and shrugged. Sure. Then off we go. The boys hurried down into the dungeons and arrived. He always goes straight to his chambers after dinner, not his office, Harry explained. You guys can't know the password. Draco and Ron covered their ears while Harry whispered the password. When the door opened, the boys uncovered their ears and entered. Severus was not there yet. We'll just wait. Harry threw himself onto his couch uncharacteristically. Ron and Draco carefully settled themselves on the upper couch, looking politely uncomfortable. Severus entered and stopped. Hello, Harry. He nodded at the boys. And Harry's friends. Hey, Dad, Harry said. Noticed you seem to be in pain during dinner, Severus said, his eyes stunning Harry. Harry, are you quite well? Well, Harry said, my scars started hurting really bad. Is it normal for cursed stars to hurt? No, Severus said, disturbed, but your scar is horribly inflamed. One moment. He entered the potions laboratory beside his room and returned with a small container. Here is a salve that should work. That should help, he said, handing it to Harry. See if it works. Harry smeared some of the cream across his scar, instantly feeling and instantly the small sting that remained left. Wow, that really works, Harry said happily. Thanks. Keep that in case it happens again, Severus said. In which case, I shall bring you some more. It's almost curfew, and you need to go to bed. All right, Harry stood up. Good night. But, Dad? Yeah, Harry? Severus said. Ron and Draco were already out the door. Are you okay with me being Gryffindor? Harry asked. Really? I must admit, I would have preferred if you weren't Slytherin, Severus said. But as long as you're happy, I'm happy. Harry smiled softly. All right, good night. Good night. Chapter 12. After the fiasco with his troll, Severus seemed determined to keep a close eye on Harry and his friends, which was annoying because they wanted to know what was on the third floor. Well, Hermione was perfectly okay with not knowing, but Harry, Ron, and Draco were desperately curious. You could just ask Snape, Ron pointed out. You think Dad is going to tell me anything? Harry asked skeptically. I don't understand why you want to know so badly, Hermione said, not looking up from a book. Why don't you just keep your head down and get your education? Because I'm Harry Potter.
Harry said, rolling his eyes. My friends and I don't do that. Besides, Draco put in, grinning, where's the fun in that? Hermione rolled her eyes. Will you interrogate whomever you want, but I'm going to bed. Good night, Hermione, Ron said. Everyone looked at him. What? He asked. Hermione takes too long to say. Is it fine? Hermione shrugged. Sure, I kinda like it. She smiled at the boys. Good night. Little time skip. You know, Harry said, Uncle Hagrid generally lets stuff slip pretty easily, especially when flattered. So flatter him and then interrogate him? Ron said, biting the head of his chocolate frog. But he'll know what's happening if I do it, Harry said. I've done it many times before. He smirked slightly. We need Hermione and Draco to do it. I'll do it, no problem, Draco said, shrugging. But how the heck are you going to get Hermione to do it? Oh, I have my ways, Harry said, a mischievous grin playing on his lips. Little time skip. Absolutely not, Hermione said. No way. I refuse. Come on, Hermione, Harry says. He knew she always softened up a nickname, and as much as it was reserved for as such, it was reserved for special times. Please. As he expected, her expression softened slightly, but not her attitude did not. No, I've already told you I refuse. Harry pretended to sigh and turned around. Turned around again, acting like the idea just struck him. What if I tell you that I can make you fail in potions? He asked. That's blackmail, Hermione shrieked, and Professor Snape would never do that. Do you really want to take that chance? Harry asked. If I was you, I wouldn't do that. Hermione paused. Fine, I'll help, but just this once, okay? Harry grinned. Deal. Little time skip. I still don't understand how you got her to do this, Draco whispered to Harry as the quartet hurried down to Hagrid's hut. Blackmail, my friend, is my best friend, Harry said. I've used it so many times on so many people. Once when I was 4, I blackmailed a 17-year-old into sneaking me into Hogsmeade. How'd you manage that? Ron asked, joining them. I got a hold of pictures they didn't want getting out. Harry smirked. Don't leave the dorms open. Ever. I will get in, and I will go through your stuff. Even ours? Draco asked. Depends if I need blackmail material from you. Harry shrugged. How'd you get into the girls' dorms? Hermione asked, finally interested in their conversation. Brooms, dear Hermione, Harry explained. They're also my best friend. The quartet made it down to Hagrid's hut and knocked. Fang's bark boomed out, and the friends flinched, hoping nobody heard. The door opened just a crack, and Hagrid's face appeared. Hey, Uncle Hagrid, Harry said. Do you have a moment? Hagrid looked over his shoulder. Does it have to be now? Well, Harry hesitated. Yeah, it kinda does. Harry sighed. Hagrid sighed. Fine, come on in. The 4 friends entered the hut. Oh, Hagrid, Draco said in surprise. It's stifling in here. Can we open a window or put out the fire or something? No, sorry, Draco, Hagrid said. It's gotta stay warm in here. His eyes seemed to continually flicker back to the fireplace. Harry followed his gaze and cried out silently. Hagrid, he explained. Where did you get that? All eyes in the cabin turned to the fireplace. Sitting in the embers was a sleek, shiny, black, and extremely large egg. What, 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 what is that? Hermione asked. Her tone said that she wasn't even sure she wanted to know. That is a dragon egg, Harry, Ron, and Draco said in unison. It's a Norwegian ridgeback, Ron added. They're really rare. How did you get one? Won him off of a Greek chappie. I won down the pub. Won him off of a Greek chappie. I won down in the pub. Hagrid said casually, in a game of cards. Did you talk about animals at all? Harry asked. Well, yeah, I suppose, Hagrid said thoughtfully. He asked about Fluffy, and wanted to know if I would be able to take care of Jacket. Fluffy? Hermione asked. My dog, Hagrid said. He's up in the castle. I loaned him to Dumbledore to guard the sorceress. I shouldn't have told you that. Hagrid looked horrified with himself. Did you tell him this? Harry asked urgently. Did you tell him about Fluffy? Well, yeah, Hagrid said reluctantly. I told him after Fluffy, I could take care of a dragon. The trick with any beast is to know how to calm it. Look at Fluffy, for example. Just play a bit of music and he'll fall straight to sleep. Hagrid looked horrified again. I shouldn't have told you that, either. But you told this man, Harry said. Yeah, I did, Hagrid said. We've got to go, Hagrid, Draco said. We'll talk to you some other time. Hagrid looked furious with himself. Chapter 13. Whoever that man was that Hagrid told about Fluffy, Harry said, is going to steal that stone. I'm positive of it. It does seem very suspicious, Hermione agreed. After learning what information Hagrid had given the mysterious stranger, Hermione had become much more involved. But did you hear about that dragon egg? Ron asked. Dumbledore found out somehow. He sent it to Romania, and for my brother Charlie to take care of it. Oh, yeah. How is Charlie? Harry asked. You knew Charlie? Ron asked, surprised. Yeah, I knew Bill, Harry explained. When I was 5, Bill was a third year. Oh, cool, Ron shrugged. But there is the problem with a stone. There is a problem with stone. I think, Harry said, we should go after whoever's stealing it. If we can figure out who it is, then, and when they're doing it. But how will we know? Ron asked. Harry rubbed his ear, which had been prickling on and off ever since the troll. We'll know. Chapter 14. Christmas came and went. By the time it was February, Harry's scar had burned almost constantly. Harry withdrew from his friends and from Severus as well. All mentioned were worried about him. February 14th, Valentine's Day, arrived. As a group of friends were sitting in Transfiguration class, Harry's scar suddenly burned white hot. Harry knew what this meant. He gasped. His hand flew to it. McGonagall studied him suspiciously in concern. May I go to the hospital wing? He managed. Yes, Weasley, go with him, McGonagall instructed. The pair hurried from the classroom. I can go alone, Harry hurriedly said. You can go back to class. Ron pretended to return, but instead followed Harry stealthily. He was going to a third-floor corridor. Ron ran back to a Transfiguration classroom and over to Draco and Hermione, who were working together to turn a rat into a snuff box for preparation for re-exams. Harry's gone to a corridor, he muttered. We need to go now, We've got to tell Snape. Pear stood up immediately. Can we go check on Harry? They asked in unison. I'm sure that can wait until after class. McGonagall looks suspicious now. But shouldn't someone tell Professor Snape that Harry's on the hospital ring? Hermione asked. And someone should tell Harry that he's coming. McGonagall sighed. Fine, hurry back though, please. The trio ran from classroom down to the dungeons, not bothering to knock. They burst into the 6th-year class. Weasley, Granger, Malfoy. Severus snapped. Get out of this classroom. 30 points from Gryffindor. But sir, it's about Harry, Hermione pleaded. Severus studied them. Where's Harry? Isn't he usually with you three? There are lots of three. There's a lot of threes where Harry's going, Ron said cryptically. Class stared at him, so did Severus. Ron sighed. The 3 has a big teeth, he added. Severus looked alarmed. Why would he go there? Because someone's trying to steal it, Hermione shrieked. Severus stood and then seemed to remember class was there. Class dismissed, he said. The 6 years hurried from the room before he could change his mind. Severus swept from the dungeons. You 3 go back to class, he said. No, they yelled in unison. Severus looked at them in slight surprise. Please, sir, Harry's our best friend, Draco said. We have to come with you. Severus said, do exactly as I tell you, okay? Understood? The trio nodded. The door opened. No snarls or barks met them. Instead, deep breathing and heavy snores. A heart played in the corner. Someone was here, Severus whispered. And I know Harry doesn't know how to enchant instruments to play by themselves. He hurried over to the trap door and heaved it open. Down there is Devil's Snare, Severus whispered. Remember, it hates light and warmth, so make sure you have a fire spell ready. The trio nodded, and four of them jumped at the same time. Chapter 15. Harry drank the potion in one gulp, but left a bit in case Dumbledore or someone finally realized what was going on and came down to help. Without hesitating, he stepped through the flames and through the door. Although he had everything figured out, he couldn't help the slight surprise he got when he saw the purple turban. He had hoped that he was wrong. Quirrell turned around. Hello, Potter. Harry refused to back down. Professor, what are you doing here? Quirrell let out a humorous laugh. You already know that, don't you, Potter? Harry stared directly into Quirrell's eyes. He knew that Quirrell wanted him to look away, so he refused. Of course I do. I also know that Voldemort is hidden beneath your turban. What happened to you? Your Uncle Q. Why did you change? Quirrell chuckled again. The man you knew as Uncle Q was weak, powerless. My master has changed that. We shall return him to his body, and he will rise, stronger than ever before. Why don't you already have the stone, then? Harry challenged. You've been here for a while, I know you have. Quirrell studied Harry's face. This mirror is a key to getting the stone. This mirror is the key to getting the stone. I know it is, but how? He turned back to face the mirror again. Should I break it? I see myself presenting the stone to my master, but how do I get it? A high, cold voice that didn't belong to Quirrell or Harry echoed through the room. Use the boy. Yes! Come here, Potter! Quirrell snapped. Harry slowly walked forward towards him, knowing he must lie. Whatever he saw, he must lie. What do you see? Quirrell snapped. I'm shaking hands with Dumbledore, Harry improvised. I've won the House Cup for Gryffindor. Of Quirrell. Wow. Of course, Harry had seen nothing of a sort. He'd seen himself reach into his pocket and pull out a sorcerer's stone. As his mirror self replaced the stone in his pocket, something heaven had fallen into real Harry's pocket. He had the stone. He lies. That same voice echoed throughout the room. He is no use alive. Kill him. Quirrell turned around and flew at Harry, his hand outstretched. Harry barely had time to take a single step backwards before Quirrell was on top of him. Harry couldn't breathe. Quirrell's hands were tightening around his throat, gasping for air. Harry grabbed Quirrell's hands, trying to pry it off. Quirrell screamed but did not let go. Harry's vision was blurring. He needed air. He was going to black out. Harry tried to shove Quirrell off by pushing his face. Quirrell knocked his hand away and used the hand not around Harry's throat to keep Harry's arms pinned to the ground. This is it, Harry thought. Just before blacking out, this is how I'm gonna die. Everything went black. Chapter 16. Severus burst into the chamber. Hermione, Ron, and Draco right behind him. He saw the mirror, which had tipped over and broken. He saw flames surrounding the chamber, but none of this mattered because on the steps, Quirrell and Harry lay. Harry appeared unconscious. Quirrell was choking the life out of him. Hermione screamed, and Quirrell looked up. Horrible sight met their eyes. His face was burned and bleeding. The skin appeared to be falling off, some crumbling to ask. His turban was unraveling, revealing the face of Voldemort behind him, shrieking orders at Quirrell. Severus waved his wand, and Quirrell was blasted backwards off of Harry. Severus waved his wand again, and Quirrell was bound head to toe in thick black cords. Severus magicked him onto a stretcher and scooped Harry up into his arms. We've got to get to the hospital wing, he said quickly. Little time skip. Harry woke slowly. He was first aware of the fact that he was very comfortable and warm. As he explored his surroundings without opening his eyes, the memory of what happened came back to him. He still didn't open his eyes. The last thing he remembered before blacking out was Quirrell trying to strangle him. As far as he remembered, he had been succeeding. Pondering this, Harry reached a conclusion. He was dead. That would be why everything was comfortable. He was in heaven, and the whispering voices of those around him would be his family, wouldn't they? Well, Lily and James, and probably his grandparents. Is he all right? A voice whispered. He's been out for a long time. Another agreed. He's got to wake up soon. A third, rather hysterical voice concluded. Those were Ron, Hermione's, and Draco's voices. Did this mean they were dead too? Harry opened his eyes. He appeared to be in a hospital wing. Not exactly what he thought heaven would look like, but how should he know? He'd never been there before, after all. Instantly, he was surrounded. Ron, Hermione, and Draco were closest. Severus was standing next to Dumbledore, and Madame Pomfrey was a little further back. Harry! Hermione shrieked in the same hysterical voice. Are you all right? What happened? Why did you go without us? We thought you were dead. Hermione, Ron said sharply. Let the man breathe. Harry grinned rather weakly. Hey. His voice was pretty hoarse. It was barely a whisper, but he supposed that was to be expected when someone had just been trying to crush your windpipe. Severus stepped forward. Harry, that was extremely foolish of you. I know, Harry croaked. Why would you go without us? Hermione asked again, though in a calmer voice. Harry shrugged. I didn't want to put you guys in danger. You were extremely lucky that Quirrell did not get that stone, Severus said sternly. Harry touched his pocket under the blankets. Stone was still there. Minerva is attempting to remove the mirror as we speak. Cyrus continued. She won't be able to, Harry croaked. He wished they would stop talking. It hurt rather a lot to speak. What do you mean? Draco asked sharply. Quirrell didn't get it, right? Harry shook his head and pulled the stone out of his pocket. I did. Dumbledore stepped forward. Harry, may I have that, please? Harry handed it over. What are you going to do with it? Nicholas and I have talked, and we decided that once it has been removed from a mirror, we would destroy it. Dumbledore explained. What? Harry tried to yell, but it didn't work. His voice just got hoarser as he sat up. But then he'll die, won't he? Yes, he will die, Dumbledore smiled softly. But when you've lived for almost 700 years, dying will just seem like going to sleep after a very, very long day. Harry laid back down. Your throat's gonna be sore for a while, Severus informed him. I would advise not speaking much until it was better. We will help it along. Of course with potions, but still. Harry shrugged. Okay. Harry shook his head. Severus shook his head. That was extremely foolish, Harry. Harry grinned. You've said that already. A little time skip. February, March, April, and May seemed to fly by disturbingly fast. Before Harry knew it, exams were over, and the end of the year was approaching. What are we gonna do over the summer? Harry asked, sitting in Severus' office one day. Go to Spinner's End, or stay there? Severus hesitated. Which would you prefer? Harry shrugged. We spent that time last summer cleaning up Spinner's End. We could spend some time there, and then we could invite Ron, Hermione, and Draco over sometimes. Severus smiled slightly. Very well. Then you shall need to pack with your friends. Harry stood up. It'll feel weird. The summer? Harry said. No classes, no homework, no near-death experiences with Voldemort, no teachers. Severus rolled his eyes. Go pack. Harry grinned and left the office. Little time skip. Goodbye, Harry, Hermione said, hugging him and almost crying. Have a good summer. Hermione, are you crying? Harry asked, laughing lightly. I'll see you in 2 months. Probably earlier if Dad lets me invite you over. Hermione gave a watery smile. Yes, I suppose so. See you, mate, Ron said, clapping Harry on the back. Yeah, see you, Draco said. Harry smiled and waved as they boarded the train, and as it pulled out of the station until it turned and disappeared from sight. Then he walked down to Severus' office. Hey, Dad, he said. Are we ready to go? Yes, Severus said. I should tell you. One of the house elves that works in the kitchen belongs to me, and she wants to come over with us to the summer. Her name is Izzy. She's very polite, but have you ever seen a house elf before? Yes, Harry nodded. I've snuck down to the kitchen several times. Good, Severus nodded. Izzy is surprisingly normal name for house elves. Harry seemed to be thinking about. Draco's is called Dobby, and some old witch died when her elf supposedly poisoned her cocoa. The elf's name was something like Honky, and Mr. Crouch one has named him named Winky. Well, yes, Severus said. I like Izzy better than all of those names, though, Harry continued. It just seems nicer. I don't know, I'm just thinking out loud. Severus smiled slightly. You have your trunk? Harry nodded. I brought it down earlier. Then let us go. Severus stepped over to the fireplace and handed Harry a pot full of powder. Harry grabbed a pinch and stepped into the fireplace. "Spinner's End!" he shouted, throwing down powder. He emerged out of the fireplace into the house, and he and Severus had spent hours fixing up and making it just generally more peaceful to be in. Severus emerged behind him. "Which room should I sleep in?" Harry asked. Severus levitated Harry's trunk and led the way upstairs. "I had this one prepared for you," he said, opening the door. The room was large, with big windows overlooking the backyard, which had been transformed from a forest of weeds into a nice, large lawn, big enough to fly in. There was a 4-poster bed, just like the one at Hogwarts, a small wooden nightstand, and a handsome oak wardrobe. "It's amazing," Harry grinned. Severus set the trunk down on the bed. "You should unpack your things," he said. "I'm just on my way to do my same." After Severus left, Harry opened his trunk and began to unpack. Although he loved Hogwarts, he was looking forward to an awesome summer. Okay, that is the end of it. This is the end. I know. Kind of a weird end. It never really ended fully, I guess. I don't know, really. And I know this is so late and I feel so bad. But it's just been a while for me to update. It's kind of difficult, you know. But I did see that someone did suggest for a bit more like wolfstar, drarry. I have quite a few old books I used to read of, like, you know, more Harry Potter themed, so I'll definitely get onto that. I'll try to find some new ones, some like updated ones, some nice good finished ones, because this one never finished really. Yeah, also I know people really want me to do like accelerate and heat waves, but again, I don't feel comfortable with those. I really don't. I'm sorry. I will find some more DNF things if you guys really like that. And there is a Karlnap story I've been kind of looking forward to read, so please stay tuned. Let's see. Oh, and just to let you guys know, I am comfortable with X readers. Just, I won't feel comfortable if they get, you know, kind of dirty, because that's uncomfortable. And yeah, I just hope you guys understand. I feel bad you have to listen to my voice for this long. And this is one of my favorite books, so no one suggested this. This is one of my favorite things. It was one of the first Harry Potter things I read on Wattpad. And so it's really kind of special to me, so I know no one asked for this. But yeah, please, if you have anything else Harry Potter, or maybe some other fandom, I'll even read, like, character x character, obviously, from, like, you know, I'll even do something musical, something maybe anime, depending on what it is, because it's difficult to pronounce names. I'm not trying to be rude, please don't come after me. Yeah, just suggest to me anything you would like, and I'd be happy to help. Have a good day or night, and thank you for listening.